Hello everyone, my name is Maciej Nowak and welcome to the Osom to Know podcast where we discuss all things WordPress. My today's guest is Brian Alvey, who is a Chief Technology Officer at WordPress VIP. And I am very happy that Brian agreed to be a guest, because he started building content management systems when that term hadn't even existed. He and Jason Calacanis created Engageit, which was one of the most popular websites at the time, before selling it and the technology to AOL. You will also hear what other cool stuff Brian has built, but what fascinates me the most in our conversation is Brian's perspective on being a CTO and nurturing both the product growth and the team growth. We are also discussing the challenges of joining a new organization as a C-level person, if he feels as a father of CMS, and building on top of open source. It was a fascinating conversation for me, and I hope it will be for you too. If you don't want to miss new episodes and keep learning more about WordPress, subscribe to Osom to Know newsletter at osomstudio.com/newsletter. This is osom.com/newsletter. If you watch this on YouTube, give us a thumb and subscribe to the channel. This means a lot to us.
Hey everyone, it's good to have you here. We're glad you decided to tune in for this episode of the Osom to Know podcast.
Hello, Brian. So I would like to start this conversation because you are a CTO of WordPress VIP, and my first question that pops to my mind is, being a CTO, is it more art or a science?
That's funny. So it is whatever the person in the seat makes it be. I would say I'm equal parts art and science. That's a funny question that I was not expecting, by the way. It's a very good question, because I've thought about this for a long time. When I was a child, I thought I was going to be a comic book artist and draw superheroes all day long. And I thought I was going to have a career in art. And my father said a career in art means you'll never own a house and have a family and be able to eat. Okay. So don't do that. He said, you have to have a science career. Don't go to college and get an art degree. Anyone can draw, right? Go to college and get an engineering degree. So I ended up getting a physics and astronomy degree. So I ended up doing a lot of science. And I would say that one thing I noticed about myself early on was if I was competing against pure creative people who were artists, right? I would use my technical skills, computer skills. It was very early on in the 90s, and people weren't using a lot of computers in art. So if I had to compete with somebody who was technical, who was creative, I would bring my technical skills. And if I had to compete with somebody who was technical, I guarantee you I would build a better looking product than them. I would make something that was prettier. I'd make something that people liked more. So I was never a 10 technically or a 10 in terms of creativity, right? But on a good day, I was an 8 in both. And somebody I was competing with might be a 10 technically, but a 2 creatively, or a 10 creatively and a 3 technically. And so I would always use the other part. So to me, you ask, is my job art or science? It's a lot of both. It's a lot of talking to customers. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of design thinking, right? Thinking problem solving, really. Is problem solving technical or is problem solving creative? It's both.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. It's a lot of problem solving. I'd say equal parts of both. So I like that. But I think a lot of people will bring technical only to a role or creative only to a role. And I can't. I'm incapable of doing that.
All right. From what I'm hearing here, you bring together best of both worlds, right?
I hope like the Renaissance man, that whole idea of Da Vinci was like an artist and a scientist, right? I'm not Da Vinci, but that's what I aspire to. Sure.
Mm-hmm. But still, you pursued career of within the technology space, very going very very deep. And listening to your answer, like initially, I have this feeling that you described yourself as a very strong generalist, combining this art approach, your personal aspirations with what you learned and the path you pursued. So maybe digging a little bit deeper, would you say you're like a generalist on a technical position, or you are already that specialist that went very deep and now going upper on that tree, looking from the higher and higher perspective? Sure. How would you comment on this?
Yeah, so it's a good question to go deeper on. It's funny. When you say, oh, you're very very technical and you're very strong technically, so how does this all work out? I think the proof is if you put me in a room full of developers that work for me, they'll say he's not technical at all. He's barely technical. So that's a funny thing. And if you put me in a room full of artists, they'll say, I don't know if that person's any good at art. I hope that's not your day job, right? I actually got told that in college. Somebody was like, I hope you're not planning on doing this for a career, which is funny. But what I've done is in both. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's problem solving. So it really is problem solving. So what I learned in all the physics and astronomy classes is that I don't remember how quasars work or how to find the temperature of a star based on the color or the whatever. I don't remember any of that. What I remember is, at some point they said, look, there's a lot of things you're going to need to solve. There are 5 or 6 ways to do it. I'd like to see you solve it and then defend how you solved it. Tell me how you arrived at this conclusion. Which of these 4 or 5 formulas did you use? And say, like, this is how I think this is going to play out. And so it was all about problem solving, knowing that you don't know anything. Like the further you get into a science degree, the more you understand that you can spend the next 70 years studying just this one type of thing, and you will still not be the world's biggest expert at it. Or maybe you will, but you know nothing else. So I don't know. I would say I probably haven't gone deep enough in anything. I just assimilate things along the way. And so that's my, I don't know if it's a skill, gift, curse, whatever you want to call it, but it's what I do. So I would tell you in a room full, we just had this big meetup with a bunch of product teams. I would tell you I might be the least technical person in the room in terms of get on a keyboard and go code something. But I did that in the past. I effectively retired from that. You think of it, it's more like I'm a coach, not a player. And so is the coach, is he the smartest one in the room or not the smartest one in the room? I don't know. It depends on the output. So
yeah,
good question.
On the note, you mentioned being in that room and having people working for you. I wonder, how does the work look for you? I mean, what this position encompass? What does it mean to be a CTO? Because developer, it's like self-explanatory, but CTO there is so much less CTOs around the world than developers, but also they vary very dramatically across different companies, different cultures, product versus service companies and so on. So I'm very curious, what's your role and what's your objective as the CTO of WordPress VIP?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, it's funny as you mentioned that, when you said there are more developers than CTOs, and that makes sense, right? You wouldn't want to have more coaches in the world than players, right? That would be a terrible world to be in. That would be upside down. So that's it. It's a good question. It's different. Each CTO is probably built differently. Each person in the role is built differently. So at some companies, you'll have you have an executive team run by a CEO, right? In a 2-person startup, you may have a CEO and a CTO, and that's it. And really, they shouldn't even have a C title. They shouldn't be called C anything because it's a 2-person company. But then you get to we're a 300-person. yeah, exactly right. That's all that is. Yeah, sure. Founder, like that's good enough. But we're a 300-person company within a 2,000-person company, which is still not very big. And we have a good executive team, right? We have a CEO who's fantastic. I've been a CTO in the past. I was a CEO for the last, almost 20 years. And now I'm a CTO again. And I love the CEO, Nick, that I work for. He's fantastic. And so, but we also have this other team around me. So we have a chief revenue officer, a chief marketing officer who just joined us. We have a chief customer officer, I think, or customer success officer, something like that. So all these different people in all these associated roles. And so for me here in this situation, I'm the only technical person on the executive team or, technical role on the executive team at a very software-oriented company, right? So it's almost like if I wasn't there, there'd be no technology leadership represented at the top, right? And so for that role, it's a lot of different things, but it becomes, some companies have an abundance of these technical roles. So they have a chief information officer and a chief product officer, and they have all these different people, somebody in charge of design. We don't exactly have that. So I end up representing all of that in terms of figuring out what the business needs, taking what the business needs and taking it to the teams to make sure it gets built. So it's probably a broader role than it would be at some places. In some places, a CTO is like your IT. Make sure the Exchange server gets the email delivered and make sure we don't get viruses on our laptops and make sure the printers work. And so CTO can be very IT based, or here it's much more colorful and fun. Make sure some of the biggest and most popular websites on earth keep running no matter what happens to them, right? That's a different challenge. And then also in a lot of startups, you're out there selling your own product, you're building your own thing. So I would say the most unique things about the role that I'm in now are that one, I didn't build the team, and two, I didn't build the product. So in a traditional startup, even the last thing I did, I created this thing with my co-founder. We made a social video app, and then we made a platform out of it, and we built all these things. And I was constantly getting to, and even in previous companies that I founded, I got to build tools that dazzled creators. I got to build the things that our end users used. And with VIP, we don't build WordPress. That's built by WordPress core. We can affect it. We can help it. We can contribute to it. But we don't have 70 people spending their time building WordPress. We have 70 people spending their time making sure that WordPress runs for the biggest, craziest websites, whatever you want to do, that it keeps running and that it's measured well and that all these things work, and scale. So you build it, we scale it is kind of the motto, right? You build your craziest WordPress site, biggest database, biggest multi-site, that's all good. And then similarly on the team, I'd say this has got to be the first time that I've inherited a team I didn't build. And so it's a different dynamic, right? If I build a team and I take them from 0 to 6, and then from 6 to 35, 35 to whatever, they all see me as like, oh, you're the guy who invented this and you're the guy that hired me. And it's a different relationship. And when you inherit a team, you get this thing which I call stepdad syndrome, which is where you're telling them what to do and they're like, I don't have to listen to you. You're not my real dad. You didn't start this thing. You didn't build this product. You didn't hire me. And they don't say that.
I'm longer here than you.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. I've been here before. I was here before you, and the stepdad thing is funny because next year my mom's going to dump you and you're going to be gone. And I was actually the third CTO in 3 years. So they rightfully had a bit of a mental model of you're the CTO du jour. You're going to be here for a year tops and then you're going to be gone because 2 people came in and flamed out and didn't last, or I don't even know their stories. I just know they didn't stay. And so if you look at that, you go, oh, third CTO in 3 years. I don't know if we have to follow this. I don't know what this guy wants to do. Is he going to reorg? Is he going to, change our roadmap? Is he going to introduce a lot of process? What stupid playbook is this guy bringing? Has got to be what they're thinking. And that's a valid thought, right? I'm just going to wait. In a year, Brian will be gone. And so here I am a year and a half in. I'm not going anywhere. I'm having a great time. And things have gelled and things are working really smoothly. So we've gotten past all of that, stepdad syndrome that I like to call it, for me, where it's, I didn't invent this team or create this team, build this team. I didn't invent the product, but now I've got my handle on what parts of the product I love, what we can change, what we're here to do. And then specifically on the team, how to work with them, because we have 2 radically different product teams that I work with. One is the Parsley content analytics team, and the other is the VIP, the WordPress CMS platform hosting team. And they're built differently. One is a SaaS app, a single product. It's a beautiful dashboard. It's a single thing. The other is a platform for hundreds and hundreds of giant businesses to run whatever they want for WordPress. And we just have to make sure it runs. So it's definitely platform as a service, software as a service, 2 different teams, but I'm loving both of them.
So how do you combine those 2 objectives for those 2 teams? Because, it's so different, hosting platform and a SaaS platform. I know there is a lot of overlap, obviously, but, or customer base or technology, a little bit of the technology underneath. But, I can hardly think of any other, products from different worlds still within IT. I'm very curious, how do you manage those 2 very different organizations within one business?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, because if you think of someone like Salesforce, they constantly buy companies and they fit into a bit of a plan. Salesforce knows where they're going and what they're missing, right? What they need to buy, what they need to fill in. It's a bit of a trick, because one of the reasons WordPress is so successful is because of the plugin model, is because it doesn't try to do everything. It does this core bit of stuff really, really, really well. And specifically authoring. It is A+. It is the best authoring experience you're going to have for building web content, right? Or for content, right? It's phenomenal. But what it doesn't say is how all these other pieces should work. So if you look at other DXPs, right, suites of products, so like an Adobe system or some other system may have it may have 7 modules that you use, and they say here's how authoring works, here's how rendering works, here's how personalization works, here's how commerce works, here's how whatever else, analytics, right, all these other things, and they want you to buy all 7 pieces in the suite. So it's like the starting price is, like now $1 million plus, because you have to buy the suite. You're going to have a better experience with their products if you don't just try to buy one. You have to buy all of them. So it's a bigger commit for people, and that's what you're going to be sort of stuck with. So WordPress itself sort of works like the anti-DXP, which is we don't care what you do for analytics. We don't care what you do for search. We don't care what you do for all these other pieces. We're just going to do the core. And if you want to bring your own digital asset management platform, awesome. Look at it. Look at us. We're based on plugins. Look how smoothly this is. And one of the craziest things that WordPress does really well, which I don't think people understand how hard it is to make an admin, WP admin, to make a CMS where all these crazy apps are living together in harmony and have it not suck. Because it could be very easy for you to drop in the Yoast SEO plugin and some other thing for this and 10, 20 different things. And all of a sudden your CMS is like Mad Max. It's crazy. You can't get around and it's terrible and it's dangerous. And they make it so that all of these things work together cooperatively. So you can build your own CMS that's perfect for your brand, that does the 8 things that you need and uses the solutions that you want. Now, VIP is sort of the high-end version of that, right? If you have the biggest website, the most problems, the most scale, the most DDoS attacks, whatever your thing is, you come to us and we'll make this stuff run. The only place where VIP has an opinion is they say, actually, hold on a second. If you're doing analytics, we think you should use Parsley, and here's why. And Parsley is a good fit for at least half of our customers, especially media companies, people with a lot of traffic, big editorial teams, right? Big newsrooms, a lot of content, big volume of content. So we do have an opinion on that. So we're not a suite of things, but if you're doing analytics, the company, a year before I joined, made this big bet to acquire Parsley. Brilliant product, brilliant founders, amazing team, amazing process, and said in general, bring all the stuff you want, but if it's analytics around media, you're really going to want this product. This is the best one. So in terms of that, the platform you launch all your sites on and the analytics app that you use go hand in hand. And one thing I don't think people realized when they acquired it was, we didn't acquire all the other 8 things in a traditional suite, a personalization engine or digital asset management or any of these other kinds of things. We did acquire analytics, and the teams don't work the same. The Parsley team has its own process. We've ended up carrying that process over into the platform team. So the way that sprints, iterations and interludes and all that work, and the way that we build product, we've tried to blend them a bit, even though they're not the same kinds of things that we're doing. But I think where we're finally seeing this gel and blend together and really look back and go, wow, God, we were so smart to buy this company, right? We look back at this is around the places where the two products are working together tightly and around AI right now. So AI is the big hot topic. Everybody's talking about this. And what we're learning is that we have one sort of exclusive set of data, right? The content. So we have, whether it's the New York Post, Rolling Stone, White House, all these different websites, we have their content. So we're able to do things. But if you see 1 million stories, 1 million articles on a news site, and you try to build AI on top of that, that's interesting. That's good. Maybe you can write stories in that brand's voice. Maybe you can answer questions about things about the history of music or Hollywood or whatever their topic is. But none of that matters if you don't know which of those 1,000 articles outperformed all the rest of them 10 times, right? Which ones were the highest traffic ones? So it turns out that the analytics that we have on the content are crucial. They're essential to AI. If we're going to then say, ooh, you should write more like this, less like this. Here's how to fix your bottom performing content. Here's how to double down and go all in on your top performing content. Or here are things that we've learned from around the network that might help your brand as you're trying to make new content. So it's very interesting that you look at these loops of create, publish, measure, optimize, create, publish, measure, optimize, whatever that cycle is. Everybody has different words for those 4 stages. And I probably won't use the same words twice. But in all of that, if you're not measuring, how do you optimize? So it really turns out that Parsley was the missing piece for us. And if we have to have an opinion about one thing in that stack, in that suite, it's going to be analytics, because your business rises and falls based on measuring and optimizing.
All right. So I would like to make a couple of steps back still to circle around you as as the CTO, because when I was preparing for our conversation, I calculated that you being CTO of WordPress VIP is roughly 5% of your professional career time wise.
So you're saying that I'm old? Yes, I am old. Yes.
No, I'm saying you're very experienced gentleman running technology operations in VIP, and I'm wondering, something that struck me is that most of the places you worked, you had to create by yourself, like from the companies. Then when they were sold, moved to the advisory positions and so on. Now you are acting as a CTO of WordPress VIP, and I'm wondering, how did you join VIP? And no pressure, Brian. You're the third in within 3 years' time. So I'm really curious about the background of this of the situation of like what's the behind the scenes of joining WordPress VIP as the CTO.
Yeah, sure. So you're right. So a long time ago, I've been lucky to work with a lot of great brands. Like I've never built things that you haven't heard of. Like I've just been from the beginning, everything online. I've been very lucky to work with brands that people know. And similarly with investors, I've had really famous investors, and it's been really good. And at one investor summit we went to, they gave out T-shirts that had a quote, and it was it was it was the guy who created CNN, and I'm blanking on his name right now. But it was a quote about his son being an entrepreneur, and it said, "An entrepreneur is what they call you when you don't have a job, or you can't work for someone else," or something like that. Some kind of slam about that. And when I started doing things, we didn't call them startups, and I didn't know what entrepreneurs were. Right? I knew entrepreneurial, sure, but it wasn't like a career. Like, oh, we're all entrepreneurs now, right? We have and investors and all that. Didn't understand how any of that worked. We just couldn't find the things to do that we wanted to do in the companies that we had to work for. So a friend of mine and I had worked at, he worked at Sony, I worked at Business Week, but we wanted to do magazine stuff together. And so we just did that on the side. So you would just do things on the side. These are hobbies. And then until you sold ad revenue, you sold ad placements and you had revenue and you hired people and it turned into a business, and then you had to learn how to incorporate. So we just kind of fell into that. We never thought about, now you watch Shark Tank. Now you listen to This Week in Startups. Now you watch the Social Network movie. And everybody, my grandmother understands how startups work. They understand how VCs work. They understand you walk out on the big shiny floor and you pitch Mark Cuban and you ask him for money. Like that's how it works, right? So it's a different thing. So in all of that, I was that sort of entrepreneur, right? Like couldn't really work for other people, unhireable, whatever you want to call it. But building things that I thought were interesting in the moment and going faster than I could if I was working at a company where they were telling me no all the time, or let's not have risk. So I did all of that. So you're right. This last sort of year and a half is a big change. I'd actually say it's more of a grown-up job in terms of, can you deal with having a boss again? If you've been the boss for 20 years, can you have a boss? And I kind of lucked out because the person that I report to, Nick, is a phenomenal CEO. And I'll be blocked on something and he'll come in with an answer and I'll go, wow, damn, I'm glad I work with you, So that's really interesting. And then he reports to Matt Mullenweg, who, was one of the creators of WordPress, right? And built Automatic. So it's a very flat organization. It's still a very crazy, take the time you need, do what you want, be you. It's not a very corporate company at all, right? But we have really big, but the part that we do, the enterprise part, has really big, important government customers, giant enterprises. We are the crazy little division wearing suits inside like a circus show of people who can be any, look how you want, dress how you want, do what you want. And so Automatic is a wonderful, wonderful open company, loves open source, really believes in the indie web. And then we are this crazy little professional, team in a little room over here that's trying to do businessy things inside this big company. So it's been a challenge, right? Inheriting someone else's teams, selling someone else's product, right? Making this thing work. But it works for a lot of different reasons. And I'd say the number one reason is that WordPress is inevitable. So when I started building CMSs, there was no WordPress. I built things in the 90s. WordPress came out in 2003. I just 2 days ago, I got to see Matt on the 20th birthday of WordPress, and we took a little selfie on his rooftop, on the rooftop of his building, and it just made me very happy because I wasn't a part of WordPress. I didn't build WordPress. I wasn't there. I built things 6 or 8 years before WordPress. And I continued building CMSs. I never had a reason to install WordPress. Like, who cares? I would compete against WordPress to get News Corp to do some big thing with me, or to get something. I would compete against Adobe, compete against them. So I was always building my own things. And at some point, so how did I get there? Is I had a video startup, a social video company, and it was doing well. But we would do these campaigns with celebrities and their fans. So we had a way for, let's say you're hosting a podcast and you want to get video questions from fans for an upcoming guest. So we had a way where you could just share a link, just a link to a web page, put it on Twitter, put it on Instagram. People would swipe up, watch your intro video, see what you were asking for, and then click a reply button. And without leaving the Instagram app, without leaving the Instagram story, without installing anything, their camera would turn on and they could send you back videos. Or if you were Taylor Swift or The Rock, you could ask your fans a question and they could send you back videos. And so we had a whole platform for that. And what happened with us was we got into an interesting spot where every third or fourth campaign that we did with a celebrity was huge. Like Ogilvy, somebody at Ogilvy who'd been there 20 years, like, I've never seen anything work like this. This is magic. You got 15 hours of videos. It's brand safe UGC. Like, you've solved everything. And the next 2 or 3 campaigns would go nowhere. And then we do another one. It was fantastic. So we're in this zone where we hadn't yet figured out product market fit for our video product. And I happened to write Matt about something, a couple of Septembers ago. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing? We might want you to come help us with some stuff." And so we ended up talking, and then we ended up joining. But that was it. And so it's definitely, I'd say, out of my comfort zone in some ways to inherit somebody else's team. But at the same time, I feel like I went from a small company that didn't have a sales team and didn't have a support team to I just hired 50 great salespeople and somebody amazing to lead it, right? Like, I feel almost like I hired all these people that I joined. I just got a great sales team. I just got a great support team. I got a great chief marketing officer. I got a really good CEO. So it's been fun for that reason, that it's out of my comfort zone and not being my own boss. So it's freeing in certain ways, right? I don't have to worry about everything.
Yeah, and I am asking one question and you are giving your answer, and during
You're
that
welcome.
answer it's like, next question gone, next question gone. My list of questions shrinking, twice or 3 times as fast as I'm asking them. But you mentioned a couple of things I wanted to ask you, like being that there's that opinion that when you're starting your own companies, 1 second and so on, you are becoming unemployable because you would never change that. And you mentioned that it's like a grown up work, like grown up stuff to do. I was curious very much, how are you making this transition from what you have built? You shared this already a lot, but I'm very curious, what would be the thing that you were worried about when leaving your the comfort zone of what you have, of that safe space? You knew from the day one of the company you created, knowing the problems inside out and so on. Maybe smaller team, maybe not so small, but what was one thing that you worried that would be a problem transitioning from that comfort zone to something, organized, even corporate, with a corporate profile within this crazy environment of WordPress, that wasn't the case? So you worried about something, but it never materialized. You were surprised, and the opposite, something that struck you as would be easy to do, and was totally the opposite.
Yeah, let me think about that. So I would say I don't have any complaints, right? Like, I think the things I worried about, right? Inheriting a team, selling someone else's product. I would say one of the more disappointing things were, so one, my wife is like, "You're gonna have a boss again. How's that gonna work?" Right? And it actually turned out really well. And then I don't think about it much, right? But then when we actually have to do things together, I'm always just shocked at the level of help that I get. I'm usually on these meetups, I'm the oldest person in the room, right? So I'm not looking around for a mentor. I'm not looking around for something, but I have a really, really, really good boss who acts as a mentor, and that works really well. So the things that I worried about are this taking over the big team. It's not my product. I didn't invent it. How's that going to go? Do I have enough energy for this? It's a lot more work to juggle 70 people and all these, 9 calls in a row, overlapping phone calls every day with customers, with teammates. There are people that I only get to talk to once a year. It's insane. There's too much to do. So do I have enough energy for this now? Is this what I want to do next? And so far, I run myself a bit ragged. I travel a lot. I sleep on airplanes. I fly a lot of red eyes. I get sick a lot. Hopefully I'll be healthy next week because we're going on a family trip. So I was talking about this the other day, even with Matt, and he's like, I said, I probably haven't worked this hard in 20 years, since the last time before I got to run my own companies, and before I'd made a lot of money and didn't have to worry so much, right? But I take this very seriously. They acquired my company. I'm the smallest investor ever in this company, right? So I'm a bit of an owner, and I look at it like an owner. I want to increase our valuation. I want our numbers to go up. I want us to thrive during a recession, not contract, right? So I take this seriously. And I think he was shocked when I said I haven't worked this hard in 20 years, 18 years, 17 years. And he's like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, but I do it because there's just so much to do, and I really do care, and I want this to work." And then in a week, I'm going to go unplug for 2 weeks with my family and go on this epic vacation. And so it's really work hard, play hard. And he repeated that back to me. He goes, "Yeah, work hard, play hard. I like that." And it is. And so the way I'm going to tell you one. It's very funny that I'm answering more things than you ask, but that's what I do. So,
but this is very interesting. I mean, it's like you would be reading my mind, really.
Yeah. I also like interviewing people. I love doing podcasts and stuff. So this is good. So there's another thing too. So when we look at ways that Matt and I are alike, right, and not to single him out throughout this interview, but I really do think about this is his company, his product, his vision, and how am I going to work with that when I spent, 18 years ignoring it, right? Like I thought it was cute. We had respect for each other, but I would never install WordPress and use it for something, and he would never install something I built, right? That's cool. But unlike a lot of the other players in the space, we liked each other, respected each other, and always thought it would be great to work together, right? So now I'm here, and this is all good, and so it's going well. But I don't know. There are like 3 things that I look at with me and Matt, again, to single him out. I think we align on 2 of them and we don't align on 1. And so that was one of my bigger questions when I came into this was how would that play out? Because a lot of people that I've worked with here, especially in support and stuff like that, like they were born into WordPress. They don't know the web before WordPress existed. They don't know coding before the WordPress site work they did, right? A lot of people here, like I joke, like the WordPress tattoos, they bleed, WordPress colors. Like they're so WordPress, and I'm just not. So when you look at me and Matt, he runs a big distributed remote workforce that's global, 2,000 people, no offices, right? They're all over the planet. And it's not all over the planet like they're all over America. No, they're all over the planet. So I have calls at 6 a.m. with like Manchester and Hungary and all of this. And then I have calls at 11 o'clock at night because we have Australia and all. Like we have a lot of time zones to cover, and it's not fair to have somebody have to do something at midnight their time all the time just because I'm on the West Coast. So we both are completely aligned.
To stop you, sorry for jumping in, but then you are the guy that is answering the more or less calls all day long. You are on the plane, red eye,
Sure.
with red eyes, and this is interesting. And sorry for cutting you off, but when you mentioned that you haven't worked so hard for 18-20 years, and you want the numbers to go up. We are recording this on the federal holiday, right? On Monday, right? And
yeah.
Look, you are a little sick, making the interview with me on your supposedly day off.
Yeah.
Is this an American US like work ethos, or is it you driving this so hard?
So it's me being a workaholic. This is because my American teammates are off today, but I had a call with one of our teammates in Europe this morning who works, on the Gutenberg core stuff. Like we had a really good session. So I'm also trying to just get a lot of things done before I go away for a bit and then come back. And so even when I travel, so we have these meetups, right? So a long time ago when I had, I had all distributed, remote teams, probably before WordPress existed, right? So more than 20 years ago, we had companies with people all over the place. Back then it was all over America, maybe one person in Italy, maybe one person in Australia. It wasn't so distributed, but we've always had that. And the only way that works, no offices, completely remote, is if you still get together every 3 months. And we called them code jams back then. And here at Automatic, they have meetups. So we just had a meetup a couple of weeks ago in Istanbul with 3 big teams that were basically all of my CMS platform teams that I work with, right? So the platform team, the systems team, the design team, and we all got together and worked. And it's funny because it's so global that you had no choice. And so you ask about like what's social time, what's time off, what's downtime versus being on, right? Like, is today a holiday for me or is today a work day? First off, being on a podcast is a heck of a lot of fun. Talking about things that I've done or that I know about, I could do that all day long, right? Like until I run out of oxygen. So that's okay. I love to talk. This is fun, and it's helpful to me. But even on those meetups, they ask me when they're organizing them, hey, so what's your plan for us? We have 5 days, a couple travel days, but we got like 3 or 4 days in the middle. What do you want those days to be like? And if you ask me, I'm a crazy workaholic. I say, well, I would like us all to be locked in a conference room or a bunch of conference rooms with whiteboards. And I want to get up on the whiteboards and problem solve and design products and think about features and workshops and just work, build, ship, go. And the people organizing the event, who are wonderful and very smart and great at their jobs, they go, we're really tired and we never get to see each other. Can we do more social things and just, can we do a boat ride and can we do this, go-kart racing thing and all this stuff? And I'm like, and in my heart, I'm dying. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they're asking for this. No, what about the whiteboards? Come on, guys, let's work. And so one of them stepped in and said, look, I know you're worried that we're not going to get any work done, but these are all like programmer nerds. They all have laptops. They're going to be on the boat ride talking about work. That's all. They're 80% of their time they're going to spend talking about work. And so it's important to have these downtime experiences. When you build a remote team, this is actually a really good point. When you build a remote team, when you build a local team, you're only going to get the talent who is within an hour commute of your city, wherever your office is, your expensive, overpriced, wasteful office. And they're going to spend 2 hours every day commuting to this dumb office, and it's going to suck the life out of them, and they're going to be miserable. And you can only get the talent that geographically exists in a circle around that city. Like that's you're casting a net for talent that's just this. And if you think about what WordPress has done, and then what I've done in my career across, 4, 5, 6 companies, is I've cast a much wider net. And I said, look, I want to look across the whole planet, or at least the whole country, but I'm not going to limit it to just this circle around some city where I have a lease on an office space. I'm going to look at everywhere. Can I get the best talent to build this thing with me? So my co-founder for my last company, I was living in New York at the time. He was in Kansas, right in the middle of America. We didn't meet each other for a long time working together, right? Teams before then, we were all over the place. We had one product that had 8 people in 7 time zones, right? So you're casting a much wider net geographically to get talent, but what you have to do is cast a narrower net psychologically to get people who are driven, people who are going to show up, people who communicate really well, people who collaborate really well, who aren't jerks and are team players. So you can say, I want anybody on earth to work for me and come join me for this thing or work with me or build this thing with me. But really you have to find people who are very responsible, who, because you can hire somebody and they disappear for 2 weeks and you don't hear from them. And that's terrible. They don't communicate. And then you don't know, are they going to show up and something's built? Or are they going to show up and say, oh, I was stuck and I did nothing? And I learned that early on through trial and error, through hiring the wrong people to find them. And so what happens is you want to find somebody who's probably run their own business. They've had to hustle. They had 5 customers. They were juggling them and they wanted to add a 6th customer, but without dropping one of the first 5. So if you can find somebody who is built like that, who's driven, who's going to wake up, and even if you're not paying them, they just want to get up and work on something. They want to build something, even if it's a hobby, right? So you try to find these people psychologically who are built differently, and then you can hire anywhere geographically. So that's like the first thing that Matt and I are completely aligned on, which is building remote teams. I've been doing it for a long time. He's been doing it for a long time. We absolutely agree on that one. The second thing that he and I are aligned on is building great tools for creators. If I was building a podcasting platform for you or anything, I would say, what does it take you 7 clicks to do? I'm going to get that down to 2, and then 1, and then I'm going to get that down to 0 clicks. I'm going to do it before you get there, right? So I want to build these tools that make you very powerful, very, very strong, very, very effective and productive. And that's all. That's not art. That's not science. That's just, I want to make you more productive. I want to make you better at your job, and I want my software to be doing that for you. So you would never think of someone else's software. So I build software to do that. And so Matt, same thing, built WordPress, built all this stuff, this big ecosystem. So we absolutely align on remote workforces and on building great products that make people more powerful. Where we don't align is after you build the products.
I'm says, all okay, over. I'm waiting for this.
No, it's good. So on the third one, after Matt builds this amazing product, I build an amazing product, Matt goes, and now I'm going to give it away to the planet for free forever.
Exactly. I will want to dive deeper into this. Yeah.
I'm like, no. You hoard it. You put it over here in a closet, and you sell it to the highest bidder. You go to the biggest customer with the most amount of money, and you only do that. So I'm built differently on that. I was never, I've done things with open source, but I was never like, WordPress is a leader in open source when you look at things that have been successful. And now, 20 years later, what I realize about that's right. It's still not how I work, which is why I'm running the enterprise part, right? I'm doing the part for those high-end customers, the highest bidders. But what I've realized about that is it just makes WordPress inevitable. Like it is, if there are millions and millions of people whose careers, whose everything depends on this product still existing, it'll be very hard for this product to vanish. I can imagine a lot of other CMSs disappearing in a year or two. I can't imagine WordPress being gone in 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And that was his vision, and he did it right. So I love that. I get it. I'm still not built that way. I still don't want to give things away for free. But I'm happy to work in this small pocket within his company on the part where we do work with the people who have bigger, more extreme needs, government customers who need more compliance and more, more security, more. That's me. So the two, we align on remote workforces and building tools for creators. We do not align on giving away for free. But now that I've been watching this for 20 years, oh my God, he was right.
This is, again, I have like 7 paths to follow now. I cannot decide which one because you have open. Really, I'm trying to decide which path I would like to follow, but I would like for also our listeners to understand the context a little bit better. You mentioned because I would like to follow this rabbit hole of open source, like as much for free as possible instead of like guarding behind paywalls and everything. And I would like I would like you to tell me a little bit more, because you've built a couple of CMSs. I count at least 2, right? One for blogging platform, which was now I forgot the Weblogs. Blogsmith.
So that one was called Blogsmith, right? And AOL bought that, and it still runs in some version. There was another one called CrowdFusion, which was something that we did with like TMZ, MySpace, Best Buy, a bunch of other companies. And then there was another one called Saros, which CrowdFusion acquired, but then we invented a new product, bought a company in London, kept their name, and that company raised, I think it was $100 million like 3 years ago. So like that's a $1 billion platform. So those are probably the 3 most popular. But I also built a website for an NFL team, football team in America called the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a CMS. I built one with a team for Netscape
from scratch.
So those are all from scratch. So I think I built about 24 CMSs, and that's the joke. I built 24 CMSs. They've raised and made millions and millions of dollars. Matt built one CMS, has given it away for free for 20 years, and it will never die. And it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So again, he was right. But yes, so I've built a few dozen CMSs, but there are 3 popular ones. Yes.
Yeah, because this is for me. This is crazy that you are Brian Alvey created 2000 of CMSs, and this is just like amazing. How are you even building this again from scratch? I'm thinking about design patterns. Drawing conclusions from the previous CMSs, what was working, what was not working. And yet, for so many years, WordPress was not the way to go for you. So I was wondering. I'm really curious because this also, a CrowdFusion. From what I read, later, under different name, it was enterprise, like great enterprise focused CMS.
It's a lot like what I'm doing today. Yes. Yeah. So if you think of like TMZ, those sites, those are high traffic websites. They break news when Michael Jackson dies, when Whitney Houston dies, when a lot of celebrity deaths, of course, which is sad, but they have just record-breaking traffic numbers. When Michael Jackson died, the TMZ kept working, right? I was very proud that our system stayed up, but I would still get phone calls from Harvey Levin, the guy on TV who runs, TMZ, screaming at me because the site was down. But the site wasn't down. Bitly was down. So all the links that were on Twitter were failing because they couldn't redirect, but the website was there. We were never down. It was all the other services on the internet were crashing. All these other things were failing. And so our stuff stayed up. So that was sort of my background, was like building high scale, high traffic things that stayed up. So then if you look at what I'm doing now with VIP, that's exactly what we're doing too, is we're not doing, WordPress.com. We're not doing Tumblr. We're not doing the other things Automatic does. We're not doing regular sized websites, right? We're doing all of this high end stuff. But yeah, so what was your question on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this background you have, the huge amount of experience in building CMSs, platforms for clients, and why WordPress never because Blocksmith started when WordPress started, this is the same year, and this is like a coincidence, not coincidence. I'm curious to know that the year WordPress started, you started your own thing, and then WordPress was gaining a little bit more of traction.
I get that. Yeah, so I had in the 90s, so in 95, I built some websites that didn't have a CMS, right? They were just HTML, right? So Business Week, TV Guide, big brands, but they were just a static website, right? That would fit on a floppy or, whatever back in the day. Somewhere a couple of years later in the 90s, I realized, you could put a database behind a website and you could have a dynamic website that was changed, and this is cool. And then, how do you edit those things? Let's make screens for them to edit those things. So we didn't know they were called CMSs or content management, right? We just knew we needed a way for, photo editors at Business Week to edit things and do it in a web application and then have it all work for them. So I ended up building CMSs. And so around 2000, I was building conference websites for, conferences to take, $1,000 ticket orders and stuff like that in New York for big events. And a bunch of other things, but it was always the right CMS for that brand, right? So one of them was on investor deals. So it wasn't a blog. It was company name, amount, which company invested in which company, databases of stuff like business data, things like that, right? So we're building CMSs for business data. And so when you say WordPress 2003, but I knew of it in 2004, but by 2004 we already had Engadget. We already had Autoblog. We already had all these blogs running on our platform. And so I built the CMSs the way I did, which was Microsoft ASP from the 90s. So I was still doing that around 2002, 2003. Somewhere in there, we hired a team and we rebuilt things in LAMP, so PHP and Apache and on Linux. And that was all fantastic. But even then, by the time we were doing that, by the time we sold Engadget and all those other blogs to AOL, WordPress was only 2 years old. It was very new. And so when I met Matt, I was on stage at South by Southwest in 2004 in Austin, Texas. And I was up there with some of these famous web design people, Jeffrey Zeldman, and, I think there's Contact Chelik, all these early, very famous web design people. And I was the one person doing back-end stuff. And I was up there giving a talk, and Matt was in the audience. and his product was a year old. Maybe it wasn't 2 years old. So it was very early. So there was no opportunity for me when I was building those things and then selling them and being very successful with CMSs to then decide, oh, let's go try WordPress, because WordPress is very new. So WordPress 18 years ago, very different than WordPress today, right? So now you look at all the things I built, even the last thing I did, that social video platform where you share a link and you get videos back from your fans. If you're Shakira, you're getting 800 videos back from your fans in a matter of minutes, right? All of that came into a custom CMS, not WordPress, right? Not something else. So I built with my co-founder, who I still work with today, Max, the one from Kansas. I'm very happy that he's with me. He's on my VIP team, and I get to see him, in Istanbul and all over the place, and I love him. We built a custom CMS, and we built it in React. We had a React Native app. We did a lot of custom iOS code. Like, none of this made sense. None of this was a fit for WordPress because it was a social video platform. And all those videos that would come in for Shakira had to be, we didn't work with Shakira. We worked with Lil Nas X. We worked with a bunch of other stars. But all those videos that would come back in had to be transcoded. They had to be transcribed because we wanted to give you a CMS where you could look at 15 hours of video in 5 minutes. How do I scan through and find all the good ones? How do I just read what they say? That person looks like a crazy person. I don't care about that video. This one looks nice. Oh, it's a kid. Oh, let me see. Oh, it's a very nice person. This is a very good video. Let's see what the person has to say. Oh, these words are good. Now I'll watch the video. So we gave you a way to quickly speed through a lot of content. And it could have been done in WordPress, but we got it done really quickly and other stuff. We actually had a CMS that worked in Chinese and English because we were working with Digitas in Taiwan on things for the Olympics in Japan. So we built a very custom, specific thing for that business. Now, I'd say so that's why I've done 24 of these. And then each time it's been sort of the right, very specific thing for what we did. Now with WordPress, I think what's changed with WordPress, especially in the last 5 years, is Gutenberg and Gutenberg blocks. So back at 20 years ago when we were doing ours and WordPress was starting, everybody said, oh, I wish I had blocks. I wish I just had blocks of content that I could take, change the order, remix, go in. I want to be able to change the design on a block and have it change everywhere, right? All of these things were not possible before 3-4 years ago as Gutenberg has matured. So what I feel like is I built all these 24 CMSs, and at the right time, WordPress just not only was big in terms of 43% of the web, or 30 something percent of the top 10,000 websites, not only got even better fit and was inevitable and is only growing, but also the Gutenberg project really meant, oh, that thing we wanted to do for 20 years, it's finally possible. And the Gutenberg project matured. And so it's just a phenomenal time to be involved with it. And I couldn't believe in it more. Like, I couldn't be happier with it. So now I look back at, okay, that video thing I just did 2, 3, 6 years ago, or something before that. Oh, I know how I would do this in Gutenberg. I know how I would pull all of this together. WordPress could be how I would have done something that I did in CrowdFusion 10 years ago. CrowdFusion was a structured data CMS. So if you had to edit product pages with really complicated data points and really complicated structured data, on a camera, a number of lenses, a pull down, all these kinds of menus, CrowdFusion was perfect for that. WordPress at the time was not. WordPress today with Gutenberg could absolutely do a lot of that. So I think that's what happened is WordPress got good.
Yeah, so I think I understand the difference now, because I was when I was thinking about this, I was thinking that behind the scenes, all of those CMSs were, based on the same principle, executed a different way. What I'm understanding from you is that every CMS you have created was created like for purpose, like very dedicated solution to match the huge platform that you were building, and one to rule them all, like general fit, generic approach as WordPress provides wasn't possible at that time, or still probably now not in every case this is best way to go.
So you think of that product database. So Engadget and Autoblog were blog posts, right? That's easy. That could have been a fit for WordPress if WordPress had existed maybe 2 years before it started, right? But you think about Saros, it's like a drag and drop canvas it's almost like Flash, but in HTML, and it's almost like Google Docs. You and I can be in there real time, collaboratively editing multi-page magazine layouts with columns of text and stuff. That's a very specific, very radical, very interesting thing for brands, right? That's a really cool product. But for the football team, the Kansas City Chiefs, the NFL team site we did back in 2003 or 4 or whatever, you know what they cared about was the cheerleader pages. Like nothing else mattered. News, scores, none of that mattered. What does a cheerleader gallery look like? So they had a very specific need for very specific kinds of data. But and here's a funny thing too. Around the same time, I built a CMS with 2 other people for Capgemini, the big global financial services company. And today, Capgemini runs on VIP. One of our blogs we had way back when with Engadget and all those things was called Hackaday, which is a daily hack project. Hackaday runs on VIP. I've actually built a lot of things that when I got to VIP, I was like, oh, that old thing I used to work with works here. It's now on VIP. So you see how things that had maybe a more bespoke, maybe more custom CMS, 20 years later, 10 years later, they work really well on WordPress at VIP.
Yeah, that's amazing. One thing that we have in common is that we also work with Capgemini. So this is fun accident, coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
But since we are talking about the platforms you have built, you have created Blocksmith with Jason Calacanis, and this is very interesting character. And I wonder, maybe how did it happen, and what are the learning lessons lessons learned from this experience of working with a very strong character?
Yeah, so Jason and I met when we were in high school in Brooklyn, and I was so he's the middle of 3 brothers. I was best friends with his older brother, who I met my freshman year of high school. But I met Jason because he was the younger brother, the middle brother. And Jason and I are actually closer in age. I was the second youngest kid in my high school class. So his brother, who was my best friend, was like 11, 12 months older than me, almost 12 months older than me. And so Jason and I were actually closer in age. And so after high school, during college, and then after college a bit, we would meet a lot on the subway, and we'd hang out together. And then we turns out our personalities are a lot the same. We're both very driven. We both want to conquer the world. And so we fit really well together. What do you want to do this weekend? What do you want to do on a holiday? I want to work. So we would just work together. And we ended up doing that a lot. And so we worked together a bunch, and it was fun, print magazines. And then I worked for him a couple of times. So if I worked for him 5 different times, I think I quit on him 5 times. Not easy to work for.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
What were, you quit 5 times, worked for him 5 times, quit 5 times. What were you thinking when you were joining him for the 3rd time?
I know. So early on, it was side projects. It was hobbies. We would do a magazine in my house, and I had a good color printer, and I had a big Mac, and I knew how to do layout. So he was he ran editorial and did ad sales and stuff, and I did the layouts, and then he would stay with me. And we would stay up overnight, waiting for the printer to print, because it took a long time back then. And then we'd turn all the stuff in, and we'd have a print magazine. So it was really working together as hobbies. Later on, when he had a company, I would go work with him, and it just, it would be, for whatever reason, it wouldn't work, and I'd go work on something else. I also had other jobs the whole time through all of this. So it was never it wasn't a lot of full-time jobs quitting on him, but it was a lot of hey, I need you to be my art director for this thing. And I'd be it for 2 months, and then it was a disaster, or it was just wrong. And I would stop. So he'd get a new art director, and then that one would quit, and he'd say, hey, I want you back. So we worked together on and off a lot of times in very few years. But he's fun to work with, and I love him, and I feel like he's my brother. I feel like I'm the 4th Calacanis brother, in some ways. So that was good. But he definitely has a strong personality. Everything you see or hear on his podcast, or when he's on TV, or all these different things, I mean, that's him. I don't think he has a public persona and a private Jason mode. I think there's just one Jason, which is very nice. So I've worked with him. I've worked with a bunch of other people. Like I said, Harvey Levin at TMZ. He's on TV all the time. He's a character. He would call screaming when things were when some AOL data center was down or something, that wasn't my fault. And my sites were down and his site was down, but I had the CMS, so he blamed me. So he's looking for me to solve it. I'm like, actually, Harvey, if you can get off the phone, I can call Columbus, Ohio data center and see what's going on and try to get our stuff working again. So I've worked with a lot of characters like that. And I wondered because, Matt is very famous and he built something really big and he is that level of character in some ways, but he has a very soft-spoken demeanor when he's on a podcast. He sounds very thoughtful. He takes a long time to answer things. He speaks, I speak really quickly. He's very thoughtful. He's very measured. He's really smart. And so I was wondering, oh no, is he going to be another, crazy, driven, screaming lunatic like Jason or like Harvey Levin, from TMZ? And it's not like that at all. He's just as driven. He wants this thing to be the biggest thing ever. He wants it to last 100 more years. He really, really believes in what he's doing, but he doesn't flip out on people and use screaming and fear the same way that other characters do. And I have a high tolerance for the screaming and the abuse, that kind of stuff. So I've done well with that, but I'm happy to not have to even think about that now. So I've worked with, and there's more characters, there's more famous people, great, really famous investors and all that. But for the most part, I tolerate that really well. And I just want to get things done and solve problems. And so it's all worked out, but I don't really worry about the characters anymore. And I don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, does this come with the experience? Because I'm the tolerance, because I'm thinking also, there are maybe two modes of operation. You either acquire the qualities of the environment you work within, or from your superiors, your bosses, and so on, or you take the stance totally opposite. Like this is the anti character. I never want to be this person. So I will see those mistakes, ways of doing things. I will avoid when I move or I get promoted. So I'm thinking now, because a CTO is also this level of position also involves a lot of leadership skills. That's why I was asking, is this more art or science? Because there is that leadership component that goes into C-level positions of managing your division, arm, leg, or whatever you call it, of people. So I'm wondering, what is you have learned from this experience versus, how the leadership, versus what's your leadership style and your opinion on the leadership, on the CTO role, in general.
Sure. Okay. So there's a few questions in that. So one is back to that idea of these crazy characters that you have to work with, right? I think I like to oversimplify things, and I use a lot of extreme language. So I use kill and died and fire and fail and success, and I'm very, there's no language for me that you'll get that's just in the middle.
And I overcomplicate my question, so I want to ask one thing, and I ask three things, and then you answer. When I ask one thing, you answer four of my questions.
I know, exactly. I'll do that too, and I'll tell somebody. So the question you didn't ask that I'd like to answer is this, because I'm hearing it in your question. So there's more of that. Well, no. So here's the thing on leadership styles, right? So if you think of something, and it's been a long time, maybe never, that I've thought about how this applies to me, because I don't think of my leadership style. I don't think I'm the guy who's going to come in and do a reorg, and the guy who's going to come in and change process. But in the year and a half since we got there, we've changed a lot of process, and we've reorganized things a bit. It's not like I come in with a playbook. Here's what worked for me at my last 10 companies, and here's what I'm going to do here. I think people who do that fail. That's like the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? Like whatever worked for you last time, probably not going to work here. Yeah. Or what?
Or 90 days. So what's your 90-day plan for new position? You are taking over new position, whatever you do.
My 90-day position was to just not break things, not mess things up. That my 90-day plan was not to break things. So I did not break things. I didn't mess things up. A lot of people are very happy with how it's going, which is good. I think there's a lot more to do. So there's a lot of unfinished business. But back to the leadership thing, I oversimplify it, and I think of two kinds of leaders. I think of Captain America and Darth Vader. So I think of those two. If you're a Darth Vader style leader who screams at people, who creates all this urgency at work when maybe it doesn't need to be so urgent, it doesn't need to be so crazy, you don't need to do an overnight, you don't need to scream at people, you don't need to be miserable. The second that that leader walks away, what do all the employees do? They want to get an escape pod and leave. They want to flee. They want to get away. They're not going to, like, nobody, when Darth Vader's not on the Death Star, everybody there is like taking a nap. When he's there, they're scared. They're freaking out. They're working hard. They're doing 18-hour days. They're doing all this crazy stuff. So the Darth Vader style of leadership is very good short term. If you need to get something built in a month or 3 months, you will work people to death. It's miserable, but they're scared and they have no choice and they're going to do it. And they're going to keep doing that. And they're not going to wise up and realize that they can get away. So when Darth Vader leaves, those people are not going to do what Darth Vader wants. They're going to run, right? Captain America, the other side, is kind of leading by example. So Captain America is going to, explain things, do them. But when Captain America is not there, you still want to do the right thing. You want to make him proud. You want to do what you would be doing if he was standing there. So you don't want to run. You don't want to flee. You want to finish the mission. You want to do the right thing. So I think there's two ways you can work with people. And I think the people who use fear and who use a manufactured sense of urgency and who create terrible working environments, I think they can get a lot done in a short amount of time. But I don't think in the long term, and WordPress thinks very long term, I don't think in the long term that you're going to be successful, because the second people can leave, they leave. And if you can do it the other way and lead by example and lead by hope and lead by creating the idea of a mission with people, then when you're not around to tell them what to do, because I have 70 people to talk to and then another 300, and too many customers. There's just too many. So I have people, again, sadly, that I talk to once or twice a year, and I can't talk to all of them. So I'm not going to be there when they're making decisions. I want to make sure that they make the ones that they would have made if I was in the room. So that's probably how I lead. And it feels like that's how Matt and all of WordPress works, which is it's a mission. You understand how to do the right thing, what to do. The company has a creed. They talk about, helping people even when it's not your job. So one of the neat things that I see that a lot of our people do is when something's going wrong, when something's breaking on Tumblr, when something's breaking on WordPress.com or WooCommerce or some other thing, or there's some security event or something, I have people on my teams that have a lot of stuff to do for really important, really big, famous clients, very important websites, that go and they jump in and they go help. And they spend their days and their evenings and their nights helping solve some problem somewhere and fixing things and going through repos and, pushing changes and looking at and just helping. They just help. And so we definitely have that leadership culture here. That is the one I'd like to hope that I do. I definitely don't scream at people. I think I don't scream at people enough. I don't scream at people at all. But I don't want to be that kind of leader. I want to be. I don't even think of it as leadership. Why there's no 90-day plan for me is because in 90 days I could not wrap my head around everything that was going on enough to say, wait, what if we go this way a little bit, right? What if we try this next? Okay, stop that thing you're working on and go do this. I can't just come in and tell them stop, change, do this. I have to look at it, figure it out. We have to figure out the business goals. There's a very profound thing that one of our customers said to us recently. We had a little event in New York City a few weeks ago, and he was he mentioned when he came in to do his job to build websites, he told his bosses, I'm not here to build a website. I'm here to build a business. So you tell me what your business goals are, and I'll build the website that makes those business goals happen. And I think that was very profound. I think we're not really here to build, a product necessarily. We're here to build a business, and our business is to make other businesses better. And if you can keep that in mind the whole time, then that's a great, you don't need a leader to tell you what to do. What should I be doing today? What helps my customers grow? That's what you should be doing today. Do you need somebody to tell you how to do that? Maybe, maybe not. I hope not. We have a bunch of very responsible, driven people who communicate really well and collaborate really well. And as long as you have them pointed in the right direction to make your customers grow, if your customers grow, you're going to grow. So that to me is leadership. Tie those things together. Help your customers grow. You'll grow.
Yeah, I really like it. And it's more like a pull instead of push, of this approach.
Sure.
And when I'm listening to you, there is an article on Inc.com that I read recently. The author, like Steve Jobs, like famously said that we don't want to hire a bunch of smart people to tell them what to do. We want them tell us what to do, right? And from this stemmed a lot of different things, like, we are hiring a bunch of smart people and lock them in the room and see what happens. And this is like, or let them do what they want to do. And, on Twitter, I read something to the effect that this is the dumbest idea ever, to lock down those smartest guys and let them loose. And back to that Inc. piece, the opinion was that right now we are like 20 years after this huge boom in IT. Like, websites are now mature. You mentioned that you're like grandmas know how startups operate. We are not in the mode of this is all new. We are in the mode that 30 years, 40 years old people are in the mode that this is the way to operate using PCs, smartphones. It is the status quo. And the younger generations, millennials that are coming to the, let's say, professional market, they are in a coping mode, in a catching up mode with those people. And this is no longer the case of, they are teaching us, let's say, the older generations, they are catching up with us and they cannot catch up because there is so much to learn. And the idea is that it's not the case of letting everyone loose, but rather taking those very smart people and training them in what business wants or what are the results. And I'm curious what's your opinion on this, on hiring people, letting them loose versus hiring people and training them to be very professional and very taking their talent and capitalizing on this talent, but with a lot of training and giving clear expectations. So a very long question with a lot of background, but I hope this makes sense.
Because and the Steve Jobs part, so the way that I'd always heard it was, you don't hire, if you need 7 people or whatever, you don't hire specific roles. This is not, you're not putting together a Dungeons and Dragons crew with one archer and one strong person and one wizard. And you don't hire for those specific roles. You get really smart people who can kind of do, especially in an early days, early startup, first 10 people, they all wear a lot of hats. They all do a lot of things. So the way I've heard it phrased was, you don't hire these specific people to get on the bus with you. You get the smartest people you can on your bus and you go off, because in 3 months you're going to change directions. And you might not need somebody who's great at this one weird database or this one weird front end thing or something like that. So you want to get the smartest people to do things. What you don't want to do, though, is just to have them work on whatever they want. This is not a university lab where they can just do whatever crazy thing they feel like, right? So there's a balance of what's the overall business direction and then what do people work on. And some people confuse the two. And they think that the way the business runs is your OKRs and your to-do list for your team. And when you have finance write a to-do list for your engineers, you have a terrible workplace. That's a horrible thing to do, right? That's probably not going to go very well. But the flip side is you can't have these really smart people doing whatever they want with no business direction. So there's a balance between the two, right? You can't let one of those two modes run how things work. So we just went through this exercise with the Parsley team because they have a very organic, very mindful product thinking way that they work, and they work in bets. They don't have a roadmap for enterprise customers to look at. They don't do all these things, and they work on bets. They pitch literally, if you want to change what you're working on every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the next pitch session is, you make a video or you make a case for I think I should stop working on reporting and I should now work on a way to do, attribution for conversions or something, right? You pitch it. And if you pitch it really well and you can get a few other people to join you, now you're working on that. So they really do dictate what they work on. The downside is if they're just working on things that they think are the next thing to do, that's not good. Yes, they're customer informed, but the business has a direction that it wants to go. So what you actually have to do is say, look, you can pitch your bets. You can work on anything you want to work on. You can make a case for why your solution is going to work. We're not going to tell you exactly what to do. We're going to tell you the outcome we want. And we're going to say that roughly we want 60% of you working on this, 20% on this, 20% on that. But within that, once we've set the overall direction, what we're trying to do, what customer problems we're trying to solve, we'll tell those to the product team. And then the product team can say, look, I think this is all about, a dashboard or reports, or maybe it's an email, maybe it's real time, maybe it's not real time. Doesn't matter. It's up to them to figure out, here's a problem to solve for the customer. So the business has to rank those problems to solve for customers. The business has to rank which customers it wants to go after, because you can't work in isolation as a product. So you can't tell the product team, hey, we'd like to solve these things, and have them only solve it for one kind of customer. Or maybe they solve it for consumers, but not enterprise. Maybe they solve it for enterprise, but not consumers. You actually you have to make sure that the product that gets built is the one that your sales team is going to sell, is the one that your marketing team is going to market, is the one your support team is going to support. So if you look at us, we are clearly enterprise. So sometimes we get asked, hey, can we make Parsley, the content analytics engine, work for, every blog on earth, all of WordPress.com, all of anything? And the answer is, well, you could, but it's not really a fit for that. It's really good for big newsrooms with a lot of editors, with a lot of, it's built to be perfect for those things. And the other way to look at it is if you're having your product team build something that isn't sold by an enterprise sales team and supported by an enterprise support team and marketed by an enterprise marketing team, your enterprise product team should not be building that. So there's interesting ways to do these tests to figure out what you can do. But at the end of the day, if you can set a broad, loose set of priorities and say, here's what we're going after, here are the business metrics we're trying to change. We get a 30% conversion rate in sales of this kind of product and a 4% in this one. We need the 4% to go up. If you can tell them that and hand that to your product team and not say, I need you to build a better filtering tool, pull down screen, some mechanism. Don't tell them how to do it or what it is. Tell them what your business goal is, and they'll build the right thing. So we have a very interesting thing that just went on where we had a gap between the business goals and what the product team was doing. And it wasn't their fault. It was probably mine. I'm the one in between the business goals and the product team, right? It's my job to make sure that the overall direction of that bus is set, and anybody on the bus is smart, talented, creative, doing the things that they think are going to solve the problems. But don't ever tell your product team, go build X. Tell them, go solve this problem for the customer, and then let them surprise you. So it's a mix. You want those smart people that can do anything, but they can't be directionless. This is not a research lab.
I will complicate the picture right now, because I would like to introduce now the open source and the community. Those two actors comes onto the scene. So it probably doesn't involve you as WP VIP directly, but this is a little bit. I'm referring back a little bit also to what you said, that you're not totally aligned with what Matt wants, like everything for the community for free versus let's look at behind the cashier desk, let's say. But how to include this component of community working for free, enormous community, and yet there is also for-profit component and the whole vision for WordPress, and so many voices to manage. Community also needs to be made happy, because they also need rewards, not financial, but recognition, reputation. It's like yet another customer to which WordPress as a thing has to sell, right? So I wonder how to manage it. It's been done for 20 years. With every new WordCamp, like Europe level, there's always community voice coming to the scene, grabs the microphone and voice their concerns. So I really want to understand this big picture, and okay. I will have follow-up questions if you let me.
Good. I have a better idea today of how it fits in than I did a few months ago. So the open source question is really interesting because it's not my background, right? It's not my thing to give things away. And so it's taken me a little while to wrap my head around, what things, because we do build things. So overall, we don't build WordPress, right? WordPress, our parent company, or the world builds WordPress, right? We don't even really sell WordPress. We sell this promise that if you bring us your WordPress thing that you invented, whether it's got a huge database or the most files or it's under attack or whatever your challenge is, it's a WooCommerce site, whatever, we will make sure that it scales, that it runs. So the promise that VIP gives to the world is you build it, we scale it. Like that's it. We don't build it. We don't change anything. We don't change code. We don't get to do a lot. We don't, weirdly, in my previous CMSs, my goal was to build an authoring interface, some kind of content management system that dazzled the creators, right? The people running it, the editors, the whatever they are. And here, I don't get to do that at all. I literally don't get to change WordPress very much. That's changing a bit with one of our AI projects. But in general, I don't change the interface you use to do your job. That's WordPress. You're using WordPress. We're making sure that scales, that works. So we do have a lot of people building things, but they're building things to make sure that works. And so when I look at that and that idea, we are building things. We're building things that make Gutenberg work really well at an enterprise level. We're building things that make search work really well at an enterprise level. And so in the last year and a half, talking to people throughout Automatic and talking to my team, I've realized that there was something I started to tell people, and I finally wrote it down. And I said, oh, I understand what the promise of WordPress VIP is. I understand what this is. What it is in WordPress, if you download WordPress and you put it on your laptop, it has a whole bunch of features. It has search. It has security. It has an authoring interface. It has backups. It has a bunch of different features. Maybe it has analytics, right? A bunch of different things. But they're the free version that runs on your laptop. How fast is WordPress search on your laptop when you download the free version? It's not very fast. How good is it? It's a full text search with percents and a like statement or whatever. Like it's not spectacular, but it works. It's fine. Everything in there works. You have a media library. It's cute. It works. If you have bigger needs than just running WordPress on a laptop or for a 2-person, little thing, you go to the professional level. So the second column, right? The first column is all the features for the free level. The second column is professional. What does professional mean? Oh, you go to a hosting service, or you use Jetpack, which works wherever you're hosting. And if you use Jetpack, guess what? You get real-time backups. You get enhanced security. You get a bunch of different features. You get better search. You get all these different things. So every one of those features that you got for free in WordPress, there's now a professional level. And that's like $25, $50 a year. That's not very expensive, right? It's tens of dollars. It's hundreds of dollars to get the professional level of WordPress. What if you are a company that has even bigger needs and you've outgrown that? You're not a consumer or a small business. You're enterprise. You're a government agency. You're a giant media company. You're a big brand. You have enterprise needs. So who's going to fill in that enterprise column of enterprise search, enterprise analytics, enterprise security? That's VIP. And a number of other hosting companies, right? There are a bunch of people out there that are doing this. But that's our job, is to fill in that enterprise column. And so we built an enterprise search. So when you come to us, you get a different version of search than you would get somewhere else. And you're able to go in and hand move search rankings to the top and change different things, right? It's the enterprise tool for search. We have partners to do enterprise asset management, digital asset management, right? Videos and photos and things like that. If you want enterprise analytics, something better than Google Analytics or Chartbeat or one of these little like pro type things, premium, professional type things. You want enterprise? That's Parsley. So we are filling in each of those things in that category. The promise of VIP and the promise of WordPress, though, is if you want to leave us, your site still works. There are a lot of platforms that you go to. If you go all in on one of these platforms, if you leave, your site doesn't work anymore. You need to move to another CMS. You need to migrate. Things don't work anymore. So with us, the promise is we're going to give you those features. And if you leave, okay, your search will be a little slower. It'll still work. Your site doesn't break. Nothing breaks. But we're building those tools. And so one of the tests that we have for whether something that we build is something that we keep and we sell to only our customers, and it's a service that you pay for, that we provide, or it's just part of being on our platform. One of the tests is if you leave and you don't have that anymore, will your site still work? And so if it won't, that's something we contribute back to open source core. That's something we contribute back to to regular WordPress, or we let you take with you. So we look at this all day long in terms of, is this thing that we're building to make migrations of Gutenberg content work, not for a 6-page website, but for a 6 million or 600 million page website? Is that something that we should give away? Is it something the world needs? Or is it something only for our customers? And we spend a lot of time thinking about these things because we try to give away as much as we can. And the easiest way to sort of decide which does that fall under? Is it something that we just built that's now free and open and give to the world or make part of WordPress? Or is it something that, it's a service that we run that you pay for? Like, we don't give away Parsley for free. You pay for it. It's great analytics. It's doing a lot. They have a lot of people and a lot of servers, a lot of code doing a lot of great work. And so that's really the test. If you leave us, will your site still run? It'll run slower. It'll be less secure. I think you're a fool to leave, right? But if you stay, it's better. But you can leave if you want to do that. But it's still going to work. And so I feel like we picked that up from WordPress more than anything else. Because in the rest of my career, if you leave Saros, your stuff doesn't work anymore. If you left CrowdFusion, your stuff doesn't work anymore. Good luck, But now we have a bit of we're a little better to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So funny you wrote this up again, because I was just going to ask you, is this like an irony that after building so many CMSs, also as a platforms for like commercial use, not one-off, but commercial, is it an irony that you are now with WordPress VIP, or is it destiny?
So, wow, destiny. So it's a bit destiny in that, I feel like I finally realized WordPress is inevitable. Everybody might think PHP is a joke in 2023. Nobody would want to, whatever you think about it, it's still like the biggest thing on earth, and it's growing. It's crazy, right? It's so big. So I do think it's destiny. I do think it's inevitable. They did a really good job building it and scaling it and pushing, like literally adding Gutenberg. Like, it's only gotten better and better and better. I do think, I don't know if it's ironic that I'm here. I think it says a lot to these customers that I believe in it so much to be here, right? That I'm not the first person who's going to say, oh, let's launch a WordPress site. And the fact that I'm here says a lot in terms of trust and all of that, and confidence from customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and don't take it like aggressive. I'm just trying to.
I don't take anything like that. It's all good. But you are right.
Great.
I wasn't born in WordPress. It wasn't my first CMS I ever used. It wasn't how I discovered the web. It wasn't any of these things. I've used it for a bunch of years. It's good for certain things, but it's gotten like. So here's the thing. So you mentioned this earlier. You said something along the lines of something I used to tell people was, if you build something for everyone, it works for no one, right? That's absolutely true. If you try to build a thing that solves every use, it's a store, and it's an auction platform, and it's a social network, and it's email, and all this stuff, odds are you're going to build something for everyone, and it's going to work for no one. But if you build something and you let it roll for 20 years, and you get the smartest people involved, and at some point half the web runs on it, odds are most things that you're going to build on the web are going to work on WordPress really well. If WordPress runs half the web, and you have something you're going to build that needs to be on the web, there's a 50-50 chance that what you're building, and maybe it's a 90% chance, that you can do it in WordPress. You cannot say the same about other CMSs that have different kinds of opinions, that aren't built on a big collaborative ecosystem and big plugins and things like that, right? You can't say that. So I feel like if you're going to have something that has longevity, that can last 20 years and then another 100 years, if you're going to do that, it's got to be open source. It has to be a collaborative effort. It has to be owned by the world, and it has to have plugins. It has to have a plugin architecture. Like, you can literally snap in anything that you want to have. So one of the it was just a lesson I learned a long time ago, that idea, like, you could tell early on in WordPress, this is going to work, but it's not ready for me yet. And then now, 10 years ago, okay, I was still building other things. But now I would say if it runs half of the web, and it could probably run the other half of the web. There's really nothing that you couldn't do on this. It's pretty impressive.
So again, half of my next question was already answered, but I would like to ask you, about if you go to if you Google for, popular CMSs out there, you end up on G2 and at least over 300 different CMSs, also with transfer is there funnily, but let's say there is roughly 300 CMSs. So what do you think about this? Also for platforms coming from I know huge organizations like Adobe, those corporate environment CMSs. What's the future in front of the CMS, let's say, ecosystem? How do you see this? Those movements will, what would be the outlook, in a decade or 2 decades? I know you don't have that magic ball, crystal ball.
I'll give you my opinion though. I definitely have the magic 8 ball of opinions.
All right.
And or the crystal ball. I guess the crystal ball of opinions you were saying.
Yeah.
So I think there will always be really interesting, cute little things that look like a cool CMS that you can try, that you can run your, 3-person startup's website on, that has 6 pages on it or whatever. And that's great. I think those things are interesting. I think it's neat to learn from them. I'll look at things that are, sort of like static site generators, or it's like a little repo and you do all your stuff and you build and you go and it builds its own dashboards and builds the CMS and structured data type things. I think those things are interesting to look at. At least for me, I don't think if you were a large government agency or a large enterprise or a bank or any of these things that you would want to be betting on something that's a year old, that looks really cool on a, two authors making 20 pages. That's cool. But what happens when you have 200 or 2,000 authors? What happens when you have 2 million or 2 billion pages? We've worked at sites that had 1 billion articles. It's a lot of content. Is that going to run in your cute little repo that you generate, your static site generator? How long does it take your static site generator to regenerate that? It's a long damn time. That's why static site generators were really cool for a minute. And now a lot of those are oh, wait, also we're dynamic. We rehydrate. It's we're not just static, right? It's a funny thing. There's some good things to be said about static sites. They are very secure because they don't do anything, right? It's cool, right? So we solve that in other ways. It's fascinating. I don't know if you were to look at, I don't know how you compare it, right? Like car companies or something, Mercedes-Benz has been around for a long time, right? Certain Toyota, they've been around a long time. And you have another car company that's a year old. Which one would you buy from? I don't know. I think I'd pick the one that has figured out how to last for decades and decades. Maybe there's something interesting to look at in some cute little electric car company or something that's out there. But don't you think that the smartest giants will stay nimble and be able to adapt? So I look at this and I think there's a lot of learnings in those, but I just don't know how a business would choose to go all in on something one of their developers thought was really neat on Product Hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but on the other hand, there is that constant battle, David and Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
David becomes the next Goliath. The huge organization, and then the little small startup comes and takes over that position because someone got rest on their laurels and gets lazy about something, and then. Yeah, but
I have an answer for that. No, I have an answer for that. So watching this organization, so this is an interesting thing because I've worked at, companies with a lot of people, and we sell businesses and work with big companies and all that. And there's a reason why they're old and slow, and you can tell they're just slowly going to die. They're not going to last, right? I get it. When you're small, you try to say yes to a lot of things and hope that one of those catches. It's the right time, the right moment, the right team, the right whatever. It resonates and you ride this giant wave up and you get really big. Once you get really big, especially if you're a publicly traded company, your whole goal is to say no to everything. You don't want to do something risky. You want to hold on to what you've got. You play defense. When you're young, you do offense. And when you're old, you just play defense. You try to hold on to that stack of stuff you have. And that's a terrible position to be in, because you've admitted that you're done growing. You're no longer trying to do anything. You just want to hold on to what you've got. And inevitably, the world will pass you by. Like, you're going to be gone. You just try to do it. You just want to be gone as slowly as you can. And there are some companies, like Microsoft has done a remarkable job. A lot of companies are terrible at acquiring. They acquire brands and then they kill them, right? It's where brands go to die, that kind of thing, right? Microsoft has done a very good job recently, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is, of buying things and not killing them. So getting GitHub, great example, right? That's thriving. That's amazing. The video game stuff they're doing, but LinkedIn, whether you love it or not, like, they've kind of left it alone. It's doing its thing. Minecraft, like, that's incredible, right? It's still huge. So they've done a really good job of buying things and not breaking them, not making them bad. Google has done a really good job. What I see, in terms of being a company that still is like a startup, that still has good ideas. Maybe not. Maybe having 10 chat apps or whatever by 10 different teams is a terrible idea. But overall, they've consistently had a good new product every few years that's going to be around forever, like Gmail, right? Like bought YouTube, right? Like they have a bunch of things. Automatic thinks a lot, from what I can tell, about being anti-fragile, about being something that's going to be hard to break, about being something that's organic, about being something that is just going to keep going and is built the right way with the right kinds of people, so that the system itself can be eternal, can be ongoing. And it's not just built around one moment. It's really not built around blogging, because blogging was cute from 2002 to 2007 or whatever. And when Jason and I got to blogging, people who'd been blogging for a while thought we were late to the game. We just got there right as it was over. We were just we were intruding and crashing their party, and they were pissed. And like, why are you paying bloggers? That's not the spirit of blogging. And then when you look back, like at our Wikipedia pages, it's like, these two guys invented blogging. It looks like we were original, like we were in there for so long. When we got there, people thought we were late. When you look back, we were still kind of early. So how do you stay nimble like that as your business gets big, and as you have an expense policy, as you have all of these crazy rules that businesses get when they grow? How do you have enough of those that you don't lose what you're doing, that you don't have people spend too much or people do crazy things? There are some rules, but you still foster this really creative place where things can happen and you can do things. And I watch, I think a lot of that works because, especially for Automatic, works because it was born in open source and born in the web. And so when I look at movements that were really big, and AI being this big explosion, and AI being the most recent one, Automatic has done a very good job of saying, like, we are all in on open source. We are open. It's going to be very hard to get rid of something that's popular, that the whole world uses. It's open source, right? Like Linux, never going away. WordPress, I don't think it's ever going away. And then you look at the web and open web and owning your own content and having your own destiny. You watch all these cycles of people who build on AOL, and then AOL goes away. And then you build on Facebook, if you're Zynga, and then Facebook shakes everybody loose, and they all, have to figure out how to get money and get traffic again. You look at people who build on other people's, on YouTube, build a business on TikTok. Who's making money on TikTok, right? You look at people building businesses on these things, and you go, you know what the one constant is? Owning my own audience, having my own website, and having all the email addresses of my customers. That's a really big thing. So who makes that possible? Oh, Automatic with WordPress and WooCommerce. Here you go, right? So they've tapped into open source. They've tapped into the web. They have a really powerful cloud for hosting all of this stuff that is completely underrated, that the world doesn't know about, run by a bunch of geniuses. They do sick stuff at a level of Amazon, and in some ways beyond, in terms of running your site and making it run the same way it runs on your laptop and it runs in the cloud. So they've done some optimizations around WordPress and around hosting that are incredible. The Edge network, the traffic shaping, like, they do incredible stuff. Very hard worked systems team, but very smart, innovative. You think of mobile, WordPress adopts that, right? You think of now you think of AI, and they're very well positioned to just keep iterating and keep absorbing each of these waves as they come. And Actually, here's a different answer to the question, which is really funny. We have kind of like the Netflix policy for vacation. It's like unlimited vacation, unlimited AFK. And so at any given time, you look across all your teams and like 1 in every 7 or 1 in every 6 people is gone. They have a 3-month sabbatical every 5 years. They're just gone. Sorry, I'm not going to be here the next 3 months. Good luck without me. This is crazy. There's parental leave, sabbaticals, AFK, all this stuff. Tons of meetups, right? People are constantly traveling. So you're constantly having to deal with, I have a team of 8, but 1, 2, or 3 of them isn't going to be here on a certain week, right? And if you think about that in terms of data centers and cloud hosting, this is what Google proved out with like commodity servers. They're like, we're not going to run $10,000 PCs. We're going to run $500 PCs. And we're going to run millions of them. And we're going to build our software such that if one of those dies, because every day, if you have 1 million servers, 50,000 servers are dying. Like they're gone. Memory's bad, hard drive goes bad, power supply goes bad, something goes bad. If you can build your product in such a way that it can handle lots of failures and things, and it can withstand that, you're going to be around for the long haul. Now you look at Automatic. If you can build your business in such a way that if I go away for 2 weeks, things still run. If I go away for 3 months, things still run. If I had another kid, if it wasn't old, if I had another kid, I go away for 6 months, things still run. So they built a business in which very smart people are attached, but they might or might not be here on a given week, and the company still runs. That's genius. It's very powerful.
Yeah, and the adjective I'm thinking is organic, because when you are explaining all of this, I'm thinking about organic structures that are tolerating a lot of failure, like massive, like on every level you tolerate a lot of failure. And wrapping this conversation, which is very long, for which I'm very grateful, I would like to end this on a little bit of a philosophical note. So my last question to you is, do you feel like as a father of CMS?
So do I feel like that?
Would you call yourself that?
No, sure. No, so people come to me with CMS questions. People ask me what's out there. People ask me things about that. And I built a lot of things. So if you want to get philosophical, I don't think of a CMS as a product. And it's probably why I built so many of them. I don't think of it as a thing or a brand, or there's here's my CMS. I don't think of it as I roll into your company and I tell you, I've got a CMS. It does these 5 things. You need to do these 5 things. Here, take my CMS. I would say so to be philosophical, my tagline for everything when I look back on what I've done is I build software that makes creative people more powerful. That's it. So that could be a video app on your phone, but that could also be a CMS. Often, 18 out of 20 times, it's been a CMS. That's what I built, because those are the people that I'm trying to build software for that make them, those creative people, and how I make them more powerful. But at the end of the day, it's not about that. And so one of the things I love is when you think about a website, when you think about content management. So I do philosophically try to unpack content management and think of what the job is. And if you think of, okay, a website is our product, you look at, okay, well, what things need to be changed once a year? The copyright date on my website needs to be changed once a year. Should I build a tool for people, creators, to manage that content? Probably not. Do it once a year. Just put it in code. We'll just push new code once a year. It's fine. But if I'm going to change a part of my website every day, every week, a couple of times a day, well, then there should be a tool for that to make that possible. So it's really about finding what things people need to do the most, those strongly repeated loops, and then taking that process and making sure it goes from really hard to really easy, to go from really slow to really fast. So I don't think of myself as a content management person. I think of myself as a person who will build tools to make creative people more powerful so they don't hate their jobs, and so they can be more effective, so their businesses can grow. And if all my customers' businesses grow, my business grows. And it happens to have been content management, but also I've built brands that I've owned, right? Like I've been on both sides of the table a lot. So I don't think of myself as that, but I am definitely a software guy. I'm not building hardware things. I'm not doing any of that. I'm definitely working on other people's hardware. So yeah, I build software that makes creative people more powerful, And often that's been CMSs, and some of mine have done really well. And I know a lot of other people who CMSs have done way better.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this conversation. And
I love it.
Oh yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I appreciate this. Thank you very much again. And our today's guest was Brian Alvey, CTO of WordPress VIP. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
If you like what you've just heard, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. On the other hand, if you've got a question we haven't answered yet, feel free to reach out to us directly. Just go to osomstudio.com/contact. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.